let's talk about how that happens.
So it usually happens first through people getting the original book, The Go-Giver. There are a number of books on the series and I co-wrote these with John David Mann. And when I say co-wrote, believe me, he was the lead writer and storyteller. He's a brilliant, brilliant writer. I'm a speaker, and I could never have done with those books. I'm a how-to author. I'm step 1, step 2, step 3. So I'm actually fairly boring. John's a magnificent storyteller. So yeah, we collaborate on a bunch of those, but it's usually the first one, The Go-Giver, that people will get. And then they come to the Burg.com website. They subscribe to the Substack Daily Impact. And from there, they end up kind of working their way into my world in a sense. And it's a lot of fun. It's so much fun to be able to, connect with people who are readers of the book and so forth.
Who's the ideal candidate for your programs?
So the people who invest in the speaker program, and again, it's called the Go-Giver Speaker Coach Program. And it's typically people who are between, 32 and 55, and they've been very successful in business already. Okay. And at one point they read, The Go-Giver or one of my other, Endless Referrals or something. And it's not typically that book made a big change with them. It's usually they were already doing that stuff and they simply related to the book, but they also want to become speakers, and they want to have a platform for doing it, and the how-to knowledge of how to have a speaking business. And so those are usually, they're usually a little bit more mature in that regard, as opposed to younger who are just looking to get in. We usually suggest to them that to kind of wait until they've really, done some things, and not that they can't, get involved with a lot of our thing, the Success Vault and a whole bunch of things. But as far as being a certified Go-Giver speaker, we want them to already have had that kind of life experience and so forth. And then we do that. But usually, we've got everybody though, one of our speakers is the CEO of a healthcare company. One is just, a top salesperson. You've got people who are, one was a branding authority with Anheuser-Busch, and you've got, people who have, so it's all different things. It's, I'd say mostly entrepreneurs tend to be but there are also corporate people as well.
Mm-hmm. Now, you also have a Substack, and Rhett actually referenced it here a little bit, the Daily Impact.
Yeah.
That's a bit of a shift. I mean, you mentioned that you're not the writer necessarily, the storyteller, but I've got to assume that you're actually telling some pretty compelling stories. I just copped to this. I haven't read, and I'm not subscribed to your Substack. I'm going to, go rectify
You're busy.
that.
You have other stuff to do.
Yeah, I will rectify that though. So, number one, what kind of compelled you to do it? And number two, Daily Impact. Why? Talk a little bit about why impact is such an important piece of what you do. And I know that it's tied back into Go-Giver, but what's that about for you?
No, it's a great question, because when you think about it, everything is that we want to do as human beings. Most of us, not everyone, right? But most people. Again, we're talking human nature, which is in general, and especially the people who are watching this, okay, and who are in your world and Dave's world and so forth, are people who really want to bring value to the world. Okay. Now, most of us, we do this through our work, right? And that, because that's what, not doesn't mean you can't be doing other things involved in charities and different things. That's fine. But mostly we bring value to the world through our work. And people want to feel as though they're making a difference in some way, that they're impacting others. Okay. That their life is helping to make a difference in somebody else's life. And so that's why we say, impact. Now, influence, because we say, impact and influence, right? Mm-hmm. And, influence, which by definition is simply the ability to move a person or persons to a desired action, usually within the context of a specific goal, which, by the way, that's the definition, but that's not necessarily the essence of influence. The essence of influence is pull as opposed to push. We've all heard the saying, how far can you push a rope? And we know it's not very fast, very far, at least not very fast or very effectively. which is why great influencers, people who want to impact others through influence, they don't push themselves, they don't push their ideas, they don't push their will on others. They're not push-y, right? You never hear people say, wow, that Dave or that Mary, she is so influential, she has a lot of push with people. No, she's influential, she has a lot of pull with people, right? And that's what influence and impact really is. It's pull. And how does that happen? And really the way it manifests itself is through your focus. It's being, sure, you're internally motivated, but you're outwardly focused. So the great influencer, the great impactor is constantly asking themselves questions such as, how does what I want this other person to do, how does it align with their goals, with their needs, their wants, their desires, their values? How does what I'm asking this other person to do, how does it solve a problem for them? Yeah. How does it move them closer to happiness? And when we ask ourselves these questions thoughtfully, intelligently, genuinely, authentically, not as a way to manipulate another human being into doing our will, but as a way of building everyone in the process, now we've come a lot closer to earning that person's commitment, as opposed to trying to depend on some type of compliance, which is push, right? And so that's really what it's all about. So the daily impact is just sort of a, sometimes it's on sales, sometimes it's on persuasion, sometimes it's on this, and sometimes on, but it's usually pretty short and succinct, and a message that kind of can hopefully impact their day, and they get to take the thought with them and think about it during the day.
Love it. Good.
Yeah.
Folks, you can find out more about what the legendary, and I mean that in the highest possible way, the legendary Bob Burg, at burg.com. Go Giver. That book has sold over 1.5 million copies. It's been translated into 30 languages. I mean, Bob is the real deal. So check out burg.com, and you will find a ton of stuff there. Get on the Substack. Subscribe to his Substack. I mean, that's probably the easiest way to start to get some access to some of the stuff, this wisdom that has been around for 67 years. Bob, thanks. It's been great to see you.
Thanks, Bob.
You guys are awesome. Thank you so much. It's really been a joy. Thank you.
Good to see you again. Take care.
Take care. I was just thrilled to see he was on the list of guests today.
Same here, man. He's such a good guy. Such a good human.
Yeah, and I mean, Cynthia, my wife, I came across a copy of Go Giver on the bookshelf right after we were married, and she's, oh God, Bob, and she just went off. I'm going, okay, well,
okay.
Remember me over here? So, our next guest, Phil Scully, into areas of the unknown. Hey, there he is. Hey, I love that beard. You're going to put Rhett to shame here.
Yeah, he does. He got it. He wins the title. He's got the title.
Valerian Space Ventures. And honestly, so I mean, you're one of the very few people that we've had on the show that is actually in this quote unquote space. So I'm fascinated by, as you co-founded Valerian Space Ventures. It's been around for 3 years, and you're general partner. The whole idea here is space as an infrastructure. I mean, that's kind of my take on what it is. But if you set space up as an infrastructure play, what are you hoping to achieve with this? Because I think it's just fascinating what you guys are putting together.
Yeah, thanks so much. Thanks for having me on. I'm glad that we got our first pun out of the way. A lot of puns in our industry. So we talked to a lot of great family offices, a lot of large sovereign funds about this new asset class that's forming, and we always start with a good pun. So yeah, we're really excited about what's happening in the new space economy. So, for a very long time in the US, venture capitalists and folks investing in alternative markets have been focused on what we consider to be Me Too areas, delivering food to someone's couch it's sort of like the next stage of that. I don't know what it is. It's like they deliver the food in an electric car. They deliver the food, and it's like a new spin on the same thing we've seen for so long and so many decades. So all these great engineers we took out of these amazing institutions in Texas and Indiana, Purdue, Michigan, all these great schools, and we marched them to Silicon Valley to build dating apps, and that world is shattered. Now these folks are leaving great universities and they're building rockets, they're building nuclear reactors. And so we're investing in the plumbing of space. It sounds very, very science fiction, but it no longer is science fiction. This is very much science fact. And we're at the beginning of this. And the first company that's kind of broken through now is got onto everyone's radar. It's called SpaceX, multi-trillion-dollar company now. So investors are paying attention. And then they are doing extraordinary things in multiple areas. But it's just the beginning of space, and it's going to start with infrastructure.
So I'm going to give you probably some more puns, and you probably heard this a million times. But Blaine and I are pilots, and I'm going to speak for Blaine. That might be dangerous, but I'm going to just venture to say that we probably both wanted to be astronauts.
Yep.
But I don't know why I said that. I had to get that out of the way. But my real question to you is, and if you do go to space, I'll volunteer to go to. But more importantly, what is this infrastructure we're talking about? Like, go into that a little deeper. What does that really mean? When we talk
plumbing,
about the infrastructure. Yeah, the plumbing.
Yeah, the plumbing in space is power. It's comms, so communications. It's propulsion. So in space, you kind of think about like maybe science fiction, Star Trek, and habitat off Earth, and it's really just like having towers that deliver internet more effectively from space than on Earth. It's more about using unlimited power from space or Earth. So everything is just taking infrastructure, taking basic stuff. Communications, it's really just communications like we have on Earth. It's just more effective in space, or maybe we need to communicate through space. So it's almost just thinking about the basic stuff we have here, and then you're duplicating it off Earth, or the capability that you have in space. Nuclear energy is an incredible innovation and like an amazing technology. So I was recently in Utah at Moab, and so there was a great story about the person who created Moab. And so he was a pilot, and he owned the mine there. It used to be a uranium mine, so he was very, very affluent. And so he was a pilot, and one of his favorite things was I Love Lucy. And so he would go above Moab and fly above Moab during that show, because it was the only way he could watch I Love Lucy. And so he has a house that's been turned into a restaurant, and it talks about nuclear energy and all the things the U.S. was going to do with nuclear energy in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, and all of that stopped. All of that stopped because we took all of our great engineers and we said, you can't be astronauts, you can't be nuclear physicists. This is not allowed in the United States of America, and you're going to go build great hedge funds, and you're going to go build great software companies. And so the promise of what we're doing here, the infrastructure, is the same infrastructure that the US should have been investing in for decades. So think about roads falling apart, think about our airports. I think a lot of us would be shocked to know that, you're on a plane, a commercial plane, and you're landing on that plane, it's half falling apart. And then maybe the next day on your X feed, you see a skyscraper fall from space and it's caught by a chopstick. There is extraordinary innovation that's happening for the benefit of Earth. It's just happening in these space startup companies. And it's the very early days, but to us, there doesn't seem to be anything else but the future of space right now. So I think investors now have embraced hardware investing, and you're seeing companies like Lockheed Martin lead the S&P 500 this year because they're a great hardware company because of the war. So I think the infrastructure is going to be very basic stuff, but the only difference is the infrastructure you'll have in space will have a monopoly on the solar system. So not just one celestial body, but all of the celestial bodies. So TAMs are very large.
So, Valerian, really, what you're doing, I mean, this is not an accurate description of this, but you essentially are investing in these firms that are creating this infrastructure. Is there a way that you are positioning what you're doing so that there is some synergies involved with this, or are these investments done in silos?
Yeah, there's a lot of like connectivity between the companies. You know, in most areas when you're investing, you know, my wife works for one of the largest hedge funds in the world, and I listen to some of her calls, and it's like you're living in a sharp elbowed world. You know, if you're in like the RIA space, it's very competitive, or financial advisors, very competitive to get clients. Our world of abundance is very collaborative. So our companies require a lot of capital, which means investors have to sync up to fill that capital. I think what is really interesting about this area, if you think of this area as a new asset class, much like the beginning of the internet, much like the beginning of biotech, much like the beginning of like, you know, railroads. What's interesting is that you have a sovereign influence here. So China is really focused on activity on the moon. They have 2 rovers on the dark side of the moon. And if y'all are familiar with the moon, you know, it's an amazing area to do research on. You know, there's a lot of like conspiracy theories, you know, we've never been to the moon. And then there's all these CGI images, but the moon is very cold. And so the moon has 2 weeks of a lunar night. And so everything freezes on the moon. And so the Chinese have figured out how to use Russian plutonium to trickle a little bit of power onto 2 rovers. Those rovers are navigating the dark side of the moon, and they're looking for water. And if they find water, then the Chinese will dominate launch from the moon, and maybe, you know, we'll show up on the moon, then it'll be China. So you're seeing a influence from countries and regions. Europe now has gone from being essentially what I think investors had thought is, you know, a great place to go, like the museum of the world, right? You go there for vacation. No longer the case. The best engineers in the world, I would argue, are in Munich, and they're picking up exactly where their grandfathers and great grandfathers left off. You know, the push from governments to have capabilities off Earth, the push for governments to have innovative hardware is providing an extraordinary near-term tailwind. And then you always have the long-term commercial opportunity and the dream of these big TAMs in space, but it's really that near-term customer. So we find synergies between the portfolios, in that the portfolios may be working with similar government areas or similar companies, similar countries, and that's really been kind of the magic. We call this in our world a very specific thing called like theater agnostic, and it's a very weird term to use, but we really like that term. Most people call it dual use or omni use, and that for investors, that word dual use has meant, you know, has been synonymous with extraordinary returns over the last 3 years.
Beautiful. Folks, you can find out more about what Phil is up to at Valerian Space Ventures by going to valerianspace.com. Phil, love having you on this. This has been very educational. We've got a couple of other shows that you might find useful for being able to just kind of let us know what's going on in this particularly fascinating area. So, Phil Scully, thanks for hanging out with us. We really appreciate it. You take care.
Take
Thanks,
care.
Phil.
Have a great day.
You bet.
All right.
Wow. Talk about bleeding edge. Ooh-wee, I love it. I love it.
Yeah. Smart people on this show.
Yeah. Present company excluded, but
Well,
we get to hang out.
I was going to exclude myself, but that's okay.
Who do we have up next here? I think Jason Wild, and I love the name of the company, Paradox Strategies. It's just kind of almost an oxymoron right in your face here. So
Well, thank you, Blaine. Yeah, it's great to be with you both today.
you've got a
See,
new
oh,
book
and-
out. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Rhett. Sorry.
No, I didn't know. I was gonna say I just saw the word genius, and we're talking about smart people on the show. Genius at scale. Go ahead,
Genius
Blaine.
at Scale. That's the new book. It just dropped last week, I think, didn't it? On Tuesday.
It did.
Yeah.
It did.
We got a copy of it right there.
All right.
Yes,
There we go.
indeed. Yeah, exciting moment. Almost 10 years in the making, thousands of hours. It's a great feeling. We got to a point, honestly, as an authorship team, asking ourselves if people are going to read books anymore these days. But frankly, with the abundance of AI slop, I think people are appreciating original thought and writing more than ever. So yeah, it's been very exciting. And thanks for having me on the show. I guess your previous interviewee is a tough act to follow. So let's return to earth.
Let's return to earth here. Okay. The part of the focus on Genius at Scale is that scaling an organization requires co-creation. And I want to drop a pin in that for just a minute. In the work that I do with the clients with whom we work, and it's all in service of developing leadership competency and capacity and capability. We've got a very specific definition that leadership is the activity of influencing others, which Bob Burg, we've got this, we got it covered here. Influencing others in order to co-create coordinated movement in pursuit of a worthy ideal. So that co-creation component actually is a linchpin in the entire definition. You're not going to do this by yourself. In the research that you did, you said 10 years of putting data together here. Where did the co-creation piece actually begin to rear its head, so to speak, such that became a focal point in the book?
Yeah, no, definitely. And well, for me, I mean, quickly myself, I'm a practitioner. So I've spent the last 25 years leading projects on the ground in 40 countries, leading innovation at IBM, Salesforce, then Microsoft. So I've been really blessed to be shoulder to shoulder with many leaders and people who are trying to be more innovative, scaling some idea. And I learned a lot in that journey. I think the first thing early in my career, I definitely bought into this belief of the lone genius and the myth of the lone genius, right? With Steve Jobs and Elon Musk and all of these, folks, in our everyday life. But while I was doing the work, what I realized is that, yeah, you may have that lone genius some places and they may get it right once in a while, but the organizations who are really, truly innovative are the ones that the leaders are using their authority to empower and create an environment where the community organically generates the innovation. So that was the kind of the first thing that I learned and learned the hard way. Lots of gray hair and scars from that. Then it led to this belief that, well, it's all about ideas. It's all about coming up with the best idea, a different idea. And what I quickly realized was, yeah, ideas are obviously very important, but we kind of live in a world not with an idea problem and more of an execution challenge. And I was spending time, at IBM, I got to work with, the guy who was the program manager of Deep Blue, the chess mat game that beat Garry Kasparov. I was a part of the launch of Watson Jeopardy. I've been around amazing technologists and people who have, literally changed our world in many, many different ways. And I just saw the level of sweat equity that they were pouring into this work while accepting sometimes 10, 20% success rates at a portfolio level. And for us, we focus on innovation leadership. And we were really surprised that when you look at it, lots of books on leadership, and love your definition, lots of books on innovation, but there were really no books about how do you actually lead innovation and how do you create a culture of innovation. And what we realized, is, to your point, was scaling was critical. And one way that I would look at it in terms of my own kind of realization is lots of people, when they think about innovation, immediately our minds jump to the what to innovate, right? The next killer app, the data center in space, whatever widget it might be. But the realization was, it's like, again, you might do that once, maybe you get lucky and do it a second time, but the great organizations, who are able to create environments, not just inside of their own organization, but at an ecosystem level where they're time and time again innovating, focus on the how. And there's this really interesting part of this where, to your point about scaling, I mean, you think about it, these large organizations, Fortune 500, they can copy products and services, they can poach and buy talent, but it's very, very difficult to copy or poach culture. But when you talk about culture, because it's intangible, sometimes people fall asleep. So what we realized was most of the great ideas and great innovation really fall apart at the integration stage, and not technical integration, but really people and the social integration that happens. And you think about it, I mean, fundamentally innovation is about taking risks. But we can all relate in everyday life, people don't take risks with people that they don't trust. So a lot of, the magic, or a little bit of the pattern that we uncovered around scaling was focusing on the social fabric of the organization, and being very conscious of creating shared purpose, the rules of engagement, and really an environment where there's a psychological safety where all sorts of people are willing to contribute, not just to the ideas, but going from whiteboard to reality and the execution. So we uncovered some patterns around kind of interconnected leadership roles we call the ABCs. So architect, bridger, and catalyst. Architects are really good at kind of building the environment and the culture where people are willing and able to want to innovate. Bridgers are kind of the unsung heroes of innovation. They work in kind of the boundaries and the seams inside, outside, business and IT, marketing and sales, partners. And they really try to avoid like ideas going off and dying a slow death in Death Valley. So they really operate in these kind of kill zones where innovation, especially in siloed organizations, sometimes die. And then catalysts are really great at creating kind of a mission or a purpose that's bigger than them, and they're willing to kind of let go, and know when to let go. So I think one of the big insights was that there are these different leadership types that are needed to be able to scale innovation. And I think especially in this moment where, frankly, in the work that we're doing with Paradox Strategies, we're doing a lot of work with CXOs, CEOs, as you can imagine. And as they're starting to whisper, Rhett and Blaine, some of them are whispering with the arrival of AI of, I don't know what kind of team I'm going to need in a year. And if I don't know the team I need in a year, what about 3 years? Is it half? Is it double? So it's a really interesting moment for a lot of these leaders to start with a blank sheet of paper. And we started the book thinking about mindsets and behaviors and how we can share these with others. But serendipitously, we kind of backed into a new operating model that many are starting to experiment because, in large organizations, you need predictability, you need structure, but the world is literally shifting 3 feet underneath us like every week. So you need some breathability that allows you to kind of morph what you do and the value proposition you bring to the market from the outside in. And so, in other words, simply put, Blaine, to answer your question, you can't mandate innovation. You got to invite people to want to do it. And, get good at collaboration, experimentation, and fast learning. And that's the way that you make co-creation actionable.
I mean, you read my mind, you set up my question perfectly, Jason. We're in this seminal moment, right? We're in this tsunami of change, and there's so much political upheaval. There's so much technology that we see coming, but we have no idea the impact. We have no idea what the capabilities will be, but we know that they're going to change. It's going to change things. How is a leader today? I mean, I remember when I was running companies, I could look at 5 years down the road and predict my product and predict where we were going to go. You can't do that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And how do we? Because I think this book is so timely in that way. How do we see around the corners that we need to see around today so that we can innovate? How do we as leaders get our heads around this and be able to build the culture and the team and provide, make everybody feel seen and heard and safe? I mean, because, if we're feeling the pressure of all this change as leaders, what I know for a fact is our teams are feeling it 10 times.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. Yes, no, for sure. And there's a lot of anxiety. I mean, in addition to being a former executive and an author, I'm also a parent. So, I'm sharing, a lot of those
Yeah.
feelings and emotions as well. I think, first as a leader, if you look at kind of classic leadership, you could kind of label it maybe using different words, but I've always felt that it's kind of been, a form of trailblazing, right? Here's the destination, and the role of leadership is to pick that destination and then remove the inhibitors and barriers for the organization to get there. And I think that's worked pretty well for a lot of large organizations, not just in private sector, especially when you have the luxury of time. But we don't have that as much. So instead, what we've seen in the organizations that we've studied, and my co-author is the chair of the leadership program at Harvard Business School, and the third co-author is a research assistant. So we had our own kind of creative friction, me being the practitioner and then being the academics. And part of that, being Harvard Business School is access to, amazing thinkers. And so Linda, my co-author, has run hundreds of roundtables with CEOs. And it's funny, Blaine, that you went straight towards co-creation, because just out of the blue, at a board and CEO level, it became like the big topic. How do we get good at co-creation? So what we're hearing and what we're kind of advising and comes through the book is what we call wayfinding. And it's very uncomfortable for many leaders, especially ones that are publicly traded, because wayfinding is recognizing that we don't necessarily know what the destination is, but we're going to figure it out on the way. And that means optimizing and prioritizing different capabilities, within the organization. So one thing that, I think comes out in a big way as a common thread across all of the protagonists in our book. And hopefully, when you read the book and people read the book, we wrote a book that is not trying to put people to sleep around theory. We really wanted to write a book where people feel like a fly on the wall of what it was like over several years to be the CEO of MasterCard and turn that battleship in a small lake to get them to believe in the shared purpose of where they want to go. And many stories like that. And they're exceptional leaders, but one of the threads is like endless curiosity and learning. So I think a couple of tips that I'll give. One is startup or large company, come up with one or two hypotheses of things, big questions that are relevant to your business that you don't have the answer to today or you don't have confidence. And spend the next 6, 9, 12 months as a leadership team and bring others in so you have a diversity of voices and perspectives. And try to figure out what are the ways that you can answer those questions. And what happens is they end up leading you to even sharper and better questions. And it's just a practical way to start to be a learning organization. I think secondly is think about embracing radical transparency. I've been at, some companies like Salesforce, where I spent, 8 years. I joined Salesforce with 6,000 employees. And when I left, 68,000 employees. I mean, incredible growth. And, we could spend hours just talking about that alone. But one of the things that Salesforce did really well was shine a light on things to make people intentionally uncomfortable. And so a best practice from the world of Silicon Valley is have a scorecard or a dashboard that basically is highlighting the top inhibitors and barriers to getting you to that shared purpose and that destination. Because an amazing thing happens when you start to shine a bright, hot light on it. People care about it. And you're not trying to call out individuals, but you're trying to highlight and surface and have conversations around orthodoxies and decisions that were made sometime in the past that just people have never challenged. Yep. So those are a couple of things that I would, recommend that you can do. But I think, it depends on your perspective. I travel a lot in the West. The predominant thinking tends to be somewhat negative. Not everybody, but how is AI going to take my job? When is it going to happen? But in the East, it's different. And, of course, there's historical geopolitical factors, but there's more optimism. Wow, everybody's going to have access to the best doctor in the world. And that's universally abundant. That's a wonderful thing. So I think part of it is the one thing in life we can control is our attitude. It's good to have some fear about AI because that means that hopefully we'll take it seriously and we'll focus on the things that need to happen to ensure that it's being developed for the good of humanity. But at the same time, I think analysis paralysis, sitting back, is not going to get you to where you need to be. And you just got to jump in. And even if you're not excited about where the world is going, I think learning it and embracing it is going to be something that keeps you more relevant and resilient in the long term.
Yep. And I like your point about attitude. The only thing really, and this is Stoic philosophy 101, my thinking, my behavior, and my how I feel about things. Only thing I can control. Everything else is a crapshoot out there. You can pick up Jason's new book, Genius at Scale, at all of the regular places, I'm assuming, but you can also probably get a copy of it directly at geniusatscale.com. So check it out. Jason, I love the conversation, and I love what you guys are up to with this. Leadership has been in my wheelhouse, or has been literally my wheelhouse for about 45 years. I love talking with folks that are on the ground doing stuff with what I've been teaching.
Yeah, no doubt. And look forward to hearing your feedback too after you have a chance to read the book.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Have a great day.
Thank you, Jason.
Another one in the can. We just wrapped this up here.
I know.
Number 859. Wow. We'd be remiss if we didn't acknowledge Dave's absence, but the way we can do that is by pointing people to his new book. Order his new book at Don't Do Business with Dicks at dmeltzer.com/order. And it's actually a really good book. So I love the title.
That it is.
People's attention.
Yep. Just had him on the show the other day, and it was a great conversation about the book. So I second your push there.
Good. Takeaways. Would be remiss if we didn't just go into a bit of orthodoxy here. What's your takeaway?
To Jason's point, I'm not scared about this stuff. This is the best time in human history to be alive.
Yeah.
I mean, just think about. I think about all the time what my kids are going to see in the next 50, 60 years, and the opportunities for humans to go off planet, like he was talking about, and build infrastructure and travel beyond what we know, and this sort of framework for how you think that the genius at scale. I really love this stuff because I'm not like most Western people maybe think. I'm actually really excited about the future. It doesn't scare me as much as I can't wait to see what we can do and what life's going to be like. I just think it's fascinating.
Oh, I second that, and that's probably each one of our guests today spoke to the future in a very interesting and different ways, but whether it's through influencing the impact that we have today, the infrastructure of space. I'm just fascinated, and the whole idea of leadership, because each one of our guests, and that's probably my takeaway, has to do with just kind of how leadership affects all of this. And the idea of influencing in order to co-create coordinated movement in pursuit of a worthy ideal. That worthy ideal, what matters? And to the point that you just made, I'm very excited about this time that we're in, because there's a lot that matters. There's a lot that I can get excited about. There's a lot that matters. So
that is so true.
Yeah. And and I honestly think the future has less to do with, from a business perspective, effective scaling has less to do with strategy and more to do with a leadership operating system. And not the command and control leadership. We inherited a whole lot of models, but a leadership operating system that is literally designed to design me as a leader, so that I can design my organization to succeed in this ever-changing world.
Yeah.
So that I would love.
Well, that's why you, my friend, and I and David are still going to have work long into the future, I believe. That's why I'm encouraged, because that's what we do, and we help people figure that stuff out. So that's exciting.
Yeah, and to the point of helping people figure things out. Gigi, you want to put this up? Yeah, we've got a mastermind program. I'm going to just drop this in real quick as a shameless plug. The Soul of Business Experience. 23rd, no, the 30th of March, we're kicking off the 6th cohort of my mastermind program. Invite you, to ping me on this, and we'll have a conversation to see if it's fit. It's a curated group. You can't join until I say yes. So it's one of those deals. We're looking at creating, leadership operating systems for people to actually do phenomenal work in their organizations. So the invitation here is to just have a conversation. So SOBM booking. Go to that bit.ly scroll, and it'll go to a calendar, and you'll have an opportunity to have a conversation one-on-one with me.
Can I be accepted? Can I?
You can be accepted. You're already in.
All right. Okay,
got you in.
Just checking. Just checking.
Okay, folks. Thanks for listening. David wasn't here today. He's I think doing a mastermind himself, or is it I forget what it is. I think he's in Orange County, with a speaking thing of some sort. But anyway, he sends his condolences or regrets or whatever it might be. And we will see you on the next office hours. Be sure to tune in Friday morning to David's training, the Friday morning training. And those of you that are signed up for that will be getting obviously an informational email about that, or a ping. So thank you for listening, Rhett. Always a pleasure to work with you. I'm jealous that I'm not sitting by that kind of an ocean. I'm sitting by an ocean right now, but
you got a pretty good view out that window.
Yeah, but mine's cold and windy right now, and the ocean's about 52 degrees. Yeah, that one looks a whole lot more inviting.
Well, I tell you what, we can switch places every once in a while, because I like the view that you have there, my friend.
Okay, buddy. See you next week.
Right.
Take care. Thank you, folks.
Now I'm at the point you wanna be with me. I'm vibing out at a higher frequency, cause everything that I want and I'm gonna be, it's when I wake up, that's when I start to dream. Someone you love is talking down, here is the plan. Let it fall through like a handful of sand. Nothing happens overnight, what you must understand. If you dwell on the bad, then you don't stand a chance. Something you want upset, saying why it ain't mine yet. That's because now you have yet to change your mindset. People don't put their mind to rest while they're so wired. A lot of people go to sleep and wake up tired. Power of positivity and persistence. Say that I can, we'll just sit back and witness. Make an impact when our time is done.